Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're covering the new rules for the new monsters in the Gambler's Chest expansion for Kingdom Death Monster. Now, one thing I want to point out is we're specifically going to be covering the actual rules that are new, that these monsters bring in. Some of them, you'll see here, some of the stuff that's in the book here, this section here, is the pretty standard how to add this monster to your campaign text. You find this in the beginning of basically all of the expansions for Kingdom Death Monster, even the ones that came out previously. You know, the Manhunters, Slenderman, the Flower Knight. All of those have this pretty standard stuff. We're not gonna, go into that because it's pretty straightforward. The new rules, that's what we're gonna go into. And so for the Crimson Crocodile, we've got some. You can see for the Smog Singers, we've got some. Atnas certainly has some. Atnas probably has the most of anyone. You can see here as well as here. And then for the King, we've got some as well. But then for the Gambler, we've got basically, it's just that add to your collection set of text. And the same goes for the Godhand. Now, I will say that under the Godhand here for new rules for Ark Survivors and the Hand Showdown. So there is this a little bit here. So we will cover that, but obviously it's a very short little blip here about Ark Survivors and the Hand. The Crimson Crocodile has a new hit location called a Coagulated hit location, seen here. These are often added when the survivor has wounded the Crimson Crocodile. So you can see here we have a compulsive wound reaction. So when the monster recoils, its fresh blood instantly congealing into hard translucent scabs. Archive this, and then draw a coagulated hit location and place it on top of the hit location deck. So when this blushing, bulging neck is wounded, you draw the top coagulated hit location from that deck and place it on top of the hit location deck, just like this. This hit location would, of course, be discarded as normal. Now, when a survivor attempts to wound this coagulated hit location, it is an automatic failure unless they are attempting to do so from this location. So in this case, the survivor would need to be right here in order to even have a chance at wounding this hit location. This is known as the weak point for this hit location. If you have a coagulated hit location like this, and let's say in this case the survivor had a Reach 3 weapon, they still could not hit this particular weak point because they have to be able to draw an imaginary line from the survivor's base to the center of the selected space without being interrupted by an obstacle or another part of the monster. But of course, they are going to be able to target the monster anyway since they can see this location here. When you have wounded the location, you resolve the card as you would any other wound. If you fail to wound it, it goes in the discard pile, like any other wound. The Crimson Crocodile also introduces honed weapons. A honed weapon gains X strength until they strike something hard. So in this case, honed 3. So while the base strength for the Bloodlust Dagger is 0, until it strikes something super dense or it's parried, then it actually has 3 strength. Once a honed weapon has lost its edge, it does not regain that honed edge until the settlement phase or unless something explicitly preserves or restores that edge. The final new Crimson Crocodile rule is Foresight. This is a gear special rule, for instance, on the Crocodile Eyes. All survivors are considered to have Foresight anytime there is a revealed AI or hit location card. So for instance, if Alistair were to use Analyze to reveal the top AI card, now all survivors on the Showdown board have Foresight. On the Crimson Crocodile's turn, it would then of course play this card and would go into the AI discard pile, and now there are no revealed AI or hit location cards. And so all survivors at this point have lost Foresight. The Smog Singers introduced the concept of a multi-monster showdown. Each time you fight the Smog Singers, it will feature 3 monsters. As you can see, each one will have its own miniature. Smog Singers share the AI deck, and they also share the hit location deck. Wounds and attribute tokens also apply to all 3, and when performing an AI card, all 3 perform the same AI card. When a survivor makes an attack, even if they have multiple Smog Singers within range, so let's say this survivor is using a melee weapon, they must select one Smog Singer to attack. So in this case, let's say this survivor attacks this Smog Singer. If something happens through a reaction or whatever a reason, this Smog Singer moves out of range of that weapon, the survivor cannot then decide to attack this one. The attack has to be targeted towards a single Smog Singer. This also means, however, that the blind spots for Smog Singers are individual to that particular Smog Singer. So this survivor is in the blind spot of this one and not in this one. So if they attack this one, they'll get that blind spot bonus, but obviously not if they attack this one. Smog Singers also introduce a new type of AI card called an overtone card, which is indicated with the O in the top right corner. The monster level will determine how many overtone cards the AI deck contains, just as with any other type. So you can see level 1 has none, level 2 has 4 overtone cards, level 3 has 8 overtone cards. All of the Smog Singers AI cards have this harmony trait. This is what indicates that each Smog Singer will perform this card one at a time. So, perhaps first, this Smog Singer will perform this card all by itself. Then the monster controller chooses another one, and then another one, until all Smog Singers have performed the card and resolved it fully. That also means, let's say that this Smog Singer performs it fully, but then based on the board state, this Smog Singer ends up having no target and conducts the Instinct Song of Smog. This Smog Singer will still then attempt to perform this AI card. When fighting the Smog Singers, survivors will have the Bloody Hands survivor status. As you can see, whenever you wound the monster, you feel terrible and gain a guilt token. You are only guilty while you have 3+ guilt tokens. So, anytime the survivors wound the monster, they gain a guilt token. Once a survivor has 3 of these, then they are guilty. And this will come into play with certain AI cards. As you can see here, it targets the guiltiest threat. It should be noted that if no survivor has at least 3 guilt tokens, then no survivor is guilty, and therefore there is no guiltiest survivor or guiltiest threat. Smog Singer music is infectious, and each survivor starts with a song card randomly given to them at the beginning of the showdown, face down. Survivors cannot look at this until they spend an action to do so. There are other times when the monster may force them to sing, but when they unlock the card, they flip it over and resolve it. Oftentimes, it will remove all guilt tokens, but then it will also have some other effect as well. Certain gear that can be crafted from the Colosseum allows survivors to perform ballads. In this case, you can see Ballad of Perfection 7. To perform a ballad, the survivor spends their activation and then archives that number of monster wounds from the wound stack, in this case 7. Often they will also provide an additional bonus. In this case, all survivors increase their perfect hit range by 1. That bonus will continue until the gear is archived, you die, or another ballad is performed. Survivors can perform 1 ballad at a time unless an effect instructs otherwise. Atnas introduces the Swordcraft cards deck. During the showdown setup, you'll shuffle this deck of Swordcraft cards, and then through various effects such as AI cards, Atnas will deal these Swordcraft cards to the survivors. So here you can see that he's going to intimidate all survivors. If they fear, then you hide your face, turning away from a full-body laughter, suffer the lunacy brain trauma. Atnas trains its eyes on you, one hand reaching for its sheath, gain monster level face-down Swordcraft cards. So if this was level 1 Atnas, then this survivor would gain a Swordcraft card face-down. When Atnas resolves the Swordcraft cards against the survivors, such as with Spark of Joy, you can see here it says, Atnas's blade bursts from its sheath, end all other ongoing actions. Survivors take turns flipping and resolving 1 Swordcraft card. Continue to cycle through survivors 1 card at a time until all cards are resolved. If a survivor dies, continue to resolve cards on their corpse before removing the model. And so in this case, the survivor would flip over this one, and we would have Westward Slash, which is a synchronic attack. That's a new type of attack, which we covered in the previous video. And then it would move on to the next survivor and continue until all Swordcraft cards were resolved. After a Swordcraft card is resolved, it is placed in a separate discard pile specifically for Swordcraft cards. At any point when there are no cards in the Swordcraft deck, when the monster needs to deal out a Swordcraft card, then you would take all of the discards and shuffle them into a new deck. And then, of course, draw the top card and deal it to the survivor. If somehow you've gotten to the point where there are no cards in the deck and there's no discard pile, which would likely mean that all the survivors have a ton of Swordcraft cards, then nothing happens. If a survivor has multiple Swordcraft cards and they die as a result of one of them, then you would discard the rest of the Swordcraft cards, unless, of course, it happens during Spark of Joy, because Spark of Joy very specifically indicates you keep using them against the survivor's corpse. Atnas introduces cardinal direction knockbacks. So in this case, for Northbound Slash, you can see that there is a North knockback 10. Now, you may have a particular direction on the board that you would always consider north, south, east, and west. However, the Gambler's Chest does provide you with a North Star token that you can set out when you begin a showdown with Atnas. That way you have a reference for which direction is north, and then, of course, south, east, and west. The rules recommend that you place the North Star just above A1, which is the top left corner of the showdown board. Also, it should be noted that with cardinal direction knockback, if a survivor is on the edge of the board in the direction they should be knocked back, so in this case, this is the south edge of the board, we have south knockback 10, they will move along the edge of the board in the choice of the player, just like it would be with any other type of knockback. Weapon Proficiency Survivor Status cards are a new type of card, and they represent a connection forged by a shared passion. In the case of Atnas, we have a Sword Specialization Survivor status. At the start of the showdown, the survivor with the highest number of Sword Proficiency levels, but a minimum of 1, gains this Survivor status card. If no survivors are eligible because they all have 0, then archive this card. If there's a tie, then simply choose which survivor will gain it. Old Battle Scars requires you at the beginning of the showdown setup to take all of Atnas' mood cards and shuffle them up and place them face down in the wound stack. When Atnas performs limbic stimulation, you will shuffle up the wound stack and then reveal cards from the top until you find a mood. At that point, you will place that mood into play and then return the wound stack to its spot. If, because of the state of the game, you happen to reveal no moods in the wound stack despite flipping through the wound stack, then nothing happens. An important change to the rules for Atnas' mood cards is that when a mood card is discarded, it is actually placed in the wound stack. It is not placed in the AI discard pile as normal. Keen Eyes is a trait that Atnas will start with at level 3. This introduces a new keyword, Keen. Any attack profile that has Keen ignores all positive evasion attributes for the survivor. The Imaginary Elf is a minion-type monster spawned from Atnas' Myopic Mind. Minions' attributes are listed on the card, so in this case you can see Life 1, Toughness though is 25, Movement is 0. Minions will not use positive or negative attribute tokens, and they do not have a facing or blind spot. When a minion performs their action, they will do so one at a time at the end of each monster turn after the monster has performed all of its actions. When attempting to kill a minion, it's important to realize they do not have hit locations. To attack a minion, you roll to hit as normal and then attempt to wound it. If you meet or exceed the minion's toughness, in this case 25, then it suffers a wound and you reduce its life by 1. When a minion has no life remaining, they are killed and removed from the showdown board, as you might expect. Now, this is very important. Killing a minion does not make a survivor eligible to earn levels or weapon proficiency. That only comes from attacking and wounding Atnas himself. All minions do have a reward listed. In this case, you gain the Secret Fighting Art Actualize. When you kill a minion, you gain that reward. The king converts sound into 3 types of energy and uses it to fuel his attacks. Death energy, creation energy, and catabolism. During the showdown, take all of the energy cards, shuffle them together to create an energy deck. When an energy card is discarded for any reason, place it in a discard pile next to that deck. If you are ever instructed to draw an energy card and the deck is empty, take the discard pile, shuffle it up to create a new deck, and then draw the card. When the monster draws an AI card, you'll need to check the top banner to see if it requires a particular type of energy. In this case, creation energy. If all the required energy cards are in play, then perform the AI card. If, on the other hand, the energy is not in play, then discard this AI card and instead perform the king's basic action. During setup, you'll need to locate and set aside these labyrinth hit locations. As you work your way through the actual hit location deck, you will find the inflorescence cards. These are First Strike and Impervious, and you can see that it tells you to discard 1 energy card and then archive this. You'll then replace this with a random labyrinth card location, which will be the location you're trying to wound. This will also require you to put the corresponding labyrinth token into play. The king introduces a new rule called Dominated. When a survivor is dominated, they are knocked down. However, they cannot be encouraged, they cannot be fist pumped, they are knocked down until their next turn when they would normally stand up. The king also introduces a new trait called Current. Current allows the king to use creation energy to jolt survivors with powerful blasts of electricity. However, the attack will move through the target to other survivors as well. So in the case of Creation Spark, you can see it has Current 3. And the closest threat facing is the target, so that would be this survivor. Once the damage is dealt to this survivor, then any other survivor that is within 3 spaces that also has metal gear will have the same attack performed against them. It's important to know that the current cannot arc to a survivor that has already suffered the damage from this attack, so at most, every survivor will get attacked once with this attack. The Godhand doesn't have a new rule that affects it. However, it does slightly change what you're going to do with the hand when you meet the hand in Lantern Year 13, the hand level 1, as you can see here. When you're fighting the hand, you will add the Suspicious trait to the hand, and this will affect the eventual arrival of the Godhand. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching. That was everything you need to know about the new rules for the monsters in the Gambler's Chest expansion. Next up, we will be focusing on the Ark Survivors. And this is a brand new type of survivor, technically speaking. It's basically a new rule set to expand and deepen the rule set for your survivors. Lots of very interesting stuff in here, so be sure to come back for that in part 3. Also, between then and now, we'll be releasing part 2 of our Dungeon Universalis instructional series, so be sure to check that out if that's a game you're interested in. And until next time, if you're bored online, bored offline.